One of Rotary International's most recognized communicators, Jennifer has presented the keynote addresses and training workshops at more than 100 conferences across North America, and most recently in St. Petersburg, Russia, Panama City, Bangkok, Lisbon, Finland, India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Austria, and Germany. Are you worn out yet? Jennifer also contributes much energy to local organizations. She's the immediate past chair of the Board of Governors at the University of Windsor and the past chair of the Board of Directors at the Windsor Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce. She has been recognized with many awards and recognitions, including Rotary Service Award Above Self, Rotary Service Above Self Award, and a citation for meritorious service, the YMCA Peace Medallion. She is Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal and Wayne State University Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. Jennifer is happily married to Dr. Nick Kaziak?
We'll go with
Close
Dr.
enough.
Nick.
Do you ever see him? A local family physician. They share a love for many things, including travel, cycling, golf, and relaxing at their family cottage. To satisfy their thirst for adventure, they climbed and reached the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in January of 2009. As champions of the Rotary Foundation, they are members of the Arts She Clump Society, the Paul Harris Society, and are charter members of the Bequest Society. Area 4 Rotarians, please help me welcome the Vice President of Rotary International, Jennifer Jones. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now let's see if I can, okay, no ringing. Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning. It is such a joy to be here with all of you, and let me actually start it this way. How y'all doing? I say that because I come from the southern part of Canada. And you're a little farther north, actually, than where I live. If you go to the atlas and take a peek, that's a little fun fact. I do want to acknowledge before going any further how delighted I am that you've all got up this early in the morning to come and share fellowship and to be able to hear a message that I want to be able to convey to you. But more than anything, I want to thank Governor Mark for his leadership this year and for leading with distinction. And we have regular email and correspondence with each other, and I know that you're doing such a wonderful job in your district. So give it up to the governor. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank your immediate past district governor, Tim Murphy, who is been so gracious to be able to pick me up, take me around. I'm staying in his home with he and his wife, Cindy, and it's a real delight to be able to spend some additional time with him. So thank you for your leadership as well, Tim. You know, we are truly in historic times in our organization's history. And there is so much going on as we are entering our second century of service that it is truly a time that I can say we are changing like we've never changed before. You know, many of you have heard the results of the recent Council on Legislation, our governing body for Rotary, that took place in April of this year. And one of the things that it did was it actually started to punctuate and put into practice things that Rotary clubs were already doing. What happened with that is that we broke incredible ground letting Rotarians and Rotary clubs know that you need to do Rotary the way that it works for you. Relaxing a lot of the rules. You know, we've been so structured with rules for such a long time that we've been bending them, but we've now made it official that there's so much more that you can do. Relaxing attendance requirements. You know, the classification system, while important that we have a diversity in our membership, that it's not strictly about a pure classification system. It's understanding how you best reflect the community that you live in. So there's a lot of things that are really different about how we're able to do our business. And you know, in terms of attendance, the baseline now is 50%. So, but the great thing is your club can decide what that 50% is. So if you told me that you had a Rotarian that attended one meeting in a month, participated in a service project, and maybe did an online catch-up or something like that, would that be a good Rotarian?
Yes.
Absolutely. And as we look to attract younger members into our organization, we have to understand that we have to have the ultimate flexibility. And it's not just young professionals, those under the age of 40. I like to think about it from the perspective that we're trying to attract young thinkers. Have you ever met a 25-year-old who's old? Exactly. It's about what's up here. And you know, young thinkers are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. I'm going on Tuesday actually to a large club in the Milwaukee area where they have 350 members. And I'm going because we're going to celebrate one of their members who is 102 years old and has 60% perfect attendance. And you know, at first blush, when I was told this story, it's a wonderful story and it's great. And I was approached by a past district governor who said, is there any way that we could recognize this gentleman for his incredible service to Rotary? And he still goes to weekly meetings. And I said, well, you know what, let me see if I can get a letter from the president and, you know, conjure up a few things. And so I called President John Germ and I said, John, you know, here's what's going on. I'll help you pen a letter. Are you comfortable with this? And he said, absolutely. Anytime that we can recognize someone for their incredible continued service, that's great. And he said, and I'll even throw in a theme tie as a present. That'll be nice. And so I thought, this is great. So then I reached out to our public image department at Rotary International and said, here's this guy that we're going to go and celebrate his length of service, his term of service. But the story here isn't about how long he's been in Rotary. The story is, even though we're looking at trying to, you know, bring in younger members, the story is about the fact that Rotary keeps us young. It keeps us young because we're always looking for new and innovative ways to do things and different kinds of projects projects. You heard my Canadian coming out, eh? So we're always looking to do things a little bit differently. So today I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's going on in terms of some of the innovative things that we're doing from a board perspective. And I wanted to lay the seed that I'm going to talk now for the next few minutes. But at the end, I'd really love to be able to open up the floor to all of you, to any questions that you might have, anything that's going on from an international perspective with the board, where we're taking things in the future. I am an open book. You can ask me absolutely any question whatsoever, and I'd be glad to answer it. So we've spent the past couple of years really taking a deep look at who we are as an organization, looking at our brand. And one of the things that we've done, we were working with a large firm out of New York, and they were a global firm, and we selected them because we needed to take a good look at everything that was going on from a global perspective, not just a North American perspective. And so we did some really deep research into who are we, what makes us tick as Rotarians, what What's our essence? What's our core? And so we researched and we talked to tens and tens of thousands of Rotarians. And how many of you think that we're a service organization? Okay, so if we're a service organization, we compete. If that's where we lay our line in the sand, we compete with our good friends at Kiwanis and Lions and all sorts of other service organizations. How many of us think that we're a humanitarian organization? Exactly. So let's jump over there to the humanitarian side, and what happens there? Well, if we position ourselves as such, then we're competing with millions and millions of other humanitarian service organizations. So how do we come to this place where we can say that we're a category of one? We're unique. What makes us special? What makes us different? Well, there's a lot of things that make us different. And there were 3 key findings that came out of all of that research. And there are 3 that I want to share with you today. And each one of them has a story behind them that I think helps to punctuate why they're important. The very first one is about the fact that we are leaders by mindset, not necessarily by title. Now, for many of you in the room, that's a Herculean shift for us as an organization, because we have so long revolved around the fact that we were the titans of industry, the captains of business, the chief CEOs and such. We still absolutely need those people in our organization. But as we're looking to bring in younger professionals into our organization, are they at the top of the food chain yet? They're not. But are they leaders? Darn straight. And do we have a lot to learn from each other? Absolutely we do. So it's about the way that we think. And that's a big, big shift. I want to tell you a story about my father. A couple of years ago, I was in San Diego, where we train all of our governors-elect. And what happens every January is we bring the approximately 535 district governors-elect and their spouses, partners, there for a collective training. And so what happens is in the first week, there's a group of us that are there training 40 international trainers from around the world. It's an incredible experience. And then those 40 then train the 535. And so midway through this process, at the halfway mark between the 2 weeks, it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I received a call from my brother. And he was informing me that my father had just collapsed in church. And we were very quickly able to surmise that he had suffered a stroke. And so my husband and I, he's a family physician, and we were really lucky. We had a neurologist who was actually on our team there, who was able to give me some real-time consult information. And anyway, I just knew I had to get on the next plane home and go and be with my dad. And so before I tell you about the rest of that story, let me tell you that that was the year that my mom served as a Rotary Club president. My mom is a great mom, and she had served in a leadership position in her church. She had served in a leadership position in some of her other volunteer work. She does the books for my dad's tool and die company, but quite honestly, she had never been given or had or created the opportunity for herself for leadership growth. That was not part of her journey per se to this point. And so becoming a Rotary Club president, she grew. She grew like the Grinch's heart. It was just like, it was amazing to watch. And as her daughter, what a special thing to be able to watch. So fast forward, I get on an airplane, I arrive at the hospital, and my father is laying there in the emergency room, and he had complete right side paralysis. And so my mom and my husband and my brothers, they went down into the cafeteria to go and get something to eat. And I just crawled into bed with my dad. And I was laying there and I was rubbing his arm. And through very garbled speech, he said, "I always thought that I would take care of your mom. But because of Rotary, I now know that she can take care of me. The fact that the woman he loved more than anything in the entire world, that he saw her change so dramatically over the course of that leadership opportunity. What a gift. What a gift. So that's about leadership by mindset, not title. The second of the key findings is that we are about connectivity. It is the core of who we are as an organization. It's the vital connections that we make so that we can do, and the enduring connections, so that we can do incredible work in the world. You know, connectivity also lends itself to the word networking. And somewhere along the way, networking became a bad word. It got taken off the table. We were fining people in our clubs if they advertised something about their own job or vocation. How many of your clubs have been guilty of that in the past? Mine certainly was. Yeah. And so, you know, we have to understand and get back to our roots of understanding that Paul Harris founded our organization based on wanting to network, to understand that when we mix our disciplines, our vocational disciplines, we're able to take things across the finish line in a way different kind of way than if we were all coming from the same perspective. That's really cool. So in 2001, 2002, I was a young club president, and September 11th that year is a day that there's not any single person in this room is going to forget. Tuesday Lunch Club is my home club. And as most of you, we all probably were in the same position watching our television set and looking at it when that second plane hit and going through that realization that this was not an accident, that this was an act of terrorism, that there was something deliberate about what had happened. And I, like you, was in disbelief, in horror. And, you know, I started to get phone calls and emails from my club that day saying, are we going to meet? And I sat and I reflected upon it for a little while, and I thought, you know what? We are going to meet because we needed to be together in human kind, in connectivity. We needed to be there to be able to process collectively what exactly was going on. And I don't think that there was a person who missed that meeting. I think absolutely everyone came. We didn't run a normal meeting, not at all. But you know, as Canadians, we stood there that day and we faced your flag and we sang the Star-Spangled Banner with tears streaming down our faces, in unity with each and every one of you. Because that is the power of connectivity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something that Rotary offers us in such a profound way. Connectivity, the second of the key findings. The third and the final is about the fact that we are community service scaled globally. Some clubs lay the claim to the fact that, you know what, we're really about community service, not so much international service. We want to do things for our own community. That's great. Some clubs say we're really passionate about international service and this is where we want to place our emphasis, and you know what? That's great. But the reality is we are this global community, or we're a community, I guess I should say, with the ability to scale globally to our 1.2 million members everywhere in the world. I marvel right now when I look at my Facebook page, Facebook, which I went into kicking and screaming 6 or 7 years ago and now absolutely cherish because of the connectivity that it provides. But I marvel when I look at my Facebook page and I post something and I look at the different people in different countries that I know, that I've met because I've been there, that like something or make a comment, and the way that that whole global the global community can rally around things. As a matter of fact, this is kind of a cute little aside. I happen to be organizing my high school 30th high school reunion, which is this Saturday, because I have spare time on my hands, and I know it's ridiculous, but it's going to be fun. Anyway, I posted it on my Facebook page earlier this week, trying to make sure that we're not missing anybody, and the funniest dang thing happened. I started watching. I went over to see if anybody who liked it, who had made comments. There was not a single person from my graduating class. There was a guy from Pakistan, somebody in Germany, somebody in China. Like, I mean, it was crazy. It's like, okay, guys, really, you're not coming to my high school reunion. Like, this is, but it's interesting because we do have that window of opportunity to look in on people, and that's a pretty cool thing, and that's something that our organization offers that is unique. Because you know what? It's not about who we're competing against. You know who we're competing against? What we're competing against? We're competing against life. We're all busy. And that's why we need to make sure that our clubs are vibrant and fun and doing stuff that people want to be part of. And we have to ask people, what do you want from Rotary? And then give it to them. Because we are an organization of leaders. That is what differentiates us from all other organizations. We are an organization of leaders. So how do we take advantage of that? We bring leaders in and we make them better leaders. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So before I conclude, I would really love to open up the floor to questions and make sure timing-wise, Tim, where are we at on time here? I want to...
You're great, Jen. We have 10 minutes.
Okay. So, yes, sir.
What is one of the most unusual and successful, unique fundraisers that you've ever heard of in all of your Rotary clubs?
Oh, gosh. Most unique fundraiser I've heard of. Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. Let's see. Give me a second to think of that. Let me come back to you because there.
Golf tournament.
Yes.
My wife Suzanne and I were in Negril, Jamaica, and they have the donkey races, which is just an amazing fundraiser for them. And we're down there traveling in February.
So donkey races, that is definitely different. That is definitely different. Charlene, you had a question? Oh, sorry. Yes.
I've heard a lot about online clubs and what's been going on. What's the update on that? Do you see a lot of that?
So one of the things that happened during the Council on Legislation, and for those of you who are not familiar with that, what it is, the Council on Legislation is Rotary's governing body, and we meet every 3 years. And of our 535 districts, there's a person selected from each one of those. We bring them to Evanston, and then there's certain legislation that we look at and then we entertain and we vote on. E-clubs is something that has been relatively new to our organization, online clubs. And one of the things that happened at this council is that we removed them as a separate designation, and e-clubs are now considered to be full Rotary clubs. And so I'll be completely candid. I was a bit skeptical about an e-club myself because I thought, you know, where's the fellowship? Where's the human connection that you're making? And so I spoke to one of the e-clubs, actually a large one out of Paris, probably about 3 or 4 months ago. It was a fabulous experience. The technology that they use, that you log on the screen, there was probably like all faces, and so then you could scroll through page after page. They probably had, I don't know, a good 100+ people on the call from all over the world. I gave a talk, then we had question and answers, and anybody who spoke, their little window lit up so you knew exactly who it was that was talking. And they, you know, do they get together to do fundraisers in a traditional way? They don't, but they're doing other things. They try and get together when they go to an international convention. They do makeup meetings on their own at traditional clubs. So, you know, it's a really interesting and unique way to be able to participate. And again, as we look at not only young professionals, recent retirees, people who are traveling, snowbirds, it's a way to stay connected. So, if you're not at your home club while you're here, and you happen to probably be in Arizona or Florida or something, or there's a young business professional who literally has to travel 2 or 3 weeks out of the month, that's a way that they can stay involved, and it counts towards your attendance. So that whole notion of it being a time commitment that we can't handle, that argument starts to go out the window when we have this ultimate flexibility to do business the way that we've now been set up to do. So thank you for your question. Yes, right here, and then I'll go over there.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for being here with us. I'm an immigrant to this country. I've been here in the U.S. for 16 years. So to me, it's really close to my heart, thoughts about diversity and inclusion. Can you talk about how Rotary, in that effort to become global, embraces diversity and inclusion, please?
Sure, where are you from?
Mexico City.
Ah, very nice.
Thank you.
Buenos dias. Don't make me do much more than that. Cerveza, por favor. What I will say is that Rotary is the ultimate diversity. And if you go to an international convention, and have you had the opportunity to do that?
I'm recently new.
Yes. So if you were to go to an international convention where there's 30 or 40,000 people, you can walk down the hallway and you see women and men in their Nigerian head garb, and you see the Korean women in their traditional native dress, and you see people of all different cultures from all different places all over the world. And we are a diverse organization. And so one of the things that, as I said earlier, that we need to do is that we need to best reflect our own communities. And so taking a look around at our own communities, in North America specifically, England and Australia and New Zealand, we are very guilty of being, and pardon me when I say this because I don't say it disrespectfully, but the perception is that we're an old white man's club. And that is something that is a pervasive thought in research. And so, we're shifting that dynamic, but we need to better look at, what does our community look like? And it's not just diversity of race, it's diversity of age, and it's diversity of gender. And I'm not going to get on a female soapbox because I believe that we need to find qualified Rotarians to be in our organization regardless of whether they're men or women. The reality is we just have a bigger pool of women to draw upon because we only have in our zone, or this geographical area, 31%, maybe 33% that are female. So there's just a bigger opportunity to fish from the pond in that area. So it needs to be diversity on a very, from a very broad perspective. And so I think we're making good strides. I think that we certainly need to lead by example. Our board, our presidents, we do see an eclectic mix because we select from people all over the world. So we've recently had a president from Taiwan. Prior to that, we had a president from Japan, incoming president from Australia. Following that is a president from Uganda. So, that visual to people is very important so that they can see that our organization does reflect a very diverse perspective. But I'll be candid, in North America, we've got a long way to go. Thank you for the question. Right over here.
Good morning. Thanks for your nice speech this morning, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I'm past president of the Maple Grove Rotary Club, and what have you're a past club president, and now you're a Rotary International Vice President. What are some of the things you've liked about that level of Rotary, and what, if you were the president, what would you change?
Great question. So I have to tell you that I'm absolutely having the time of my life. It is a privilege beyond what I can even share in a couple of minutes. I have the great fortune to serve as the vice president to President John Germ from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And what's been really cool about our relationship, and I was sharing this with Tim yesterday, is that John's the oldest person on the board. I'm the youngest person on the board, and only in Rotary can you be a 49-year-old member of the board and be considered a kid, and I'm the kid. But it's been so beautiful to be able to share that journey with him and as equals. it's not about age, it's about, you know, about what we're able to do collaboratively. And so, favorite thing, that's the question? Favorite?
Things you like and things that you would improve.
Things I like and things that I would improve. Well, you know what? Things that I like are the fact that we are chartering new territory and new waters. And I love being able to be right at the table right now as we take our organization. And let me tell you this. One of the things that we're doing right now is actually taking a really deep look at our own governance within our board structure. And that doesn't sound sexy, I know, to everyone out in the field, but it's a monumental shift, and I'm so proud to be part of this. We're really looking, we did in a nutshell, we had a governance training day for our board and our foundation board, and we were looking at how we conduct our meetings and where we spend our time. And basically, they broke it down into 4 quadrants: operational, governance, strategic, and operational. And we analyzed what we were doing as a board, and where do you think we were spending our time? Operational. I can hear people whispering it. Operational, of course, that's what we were doing. We were in the weeds. And how many of you have boards or other, even in your own companies, where we function a little bit too much in that capacity, that we're not letting people do their jobs the way that they should be doing their jobs? And so we've taken a step back as an organization to say, how can we as a board do this differently? And I'm really proud to tell you that we've been able to move that. In our last board meeting just this past September, when we went through the tally of how we spent our time and the kinds of ways that we were able to tackle things, we spent 74% of our time on strategic and transformational issues. That's big. That's really, really big. So changes for the future. You know, obviously membership is our biggest organizational priority and our biggest challenge. And, you know, it's, from my perspective, it's not a numbers game. You know, we do a really good job of bringing people into our organization. We have a backdoor problem. We don't honor what it is that they want. We don't ask people enough, why are you here, and what can we give you? How can we develop you? How can we create something that is an experience that you want? Because once you get Rotary, once you get it, you can sit through a lot of bad chicken dinners. It's true, because you know what? Your heart's already in it. So how do we do that? How do we create that? And so really, I think taking care of people in our clubs is more important than trying to recruit new members in. If we could keep our membership, our numbers would soar. The good news I will share with you is that on the North American front, we were on a very deadly decline for the past decade, and for the past couple of years we are plateauing. And so I call it sort of stopping the bleeding. We're showing small incremental loss, but not the kind of dramatic loss that we had. But the reality is we cannot take our eye off the ball, and while polio is our #1 corporate project, membership is our #1 corporate initiative, and so that's where we need to keep our attention focused. So I think that we're out of time. There's a couple more hands. One more question, or no? Okay.
This being Rotary Foundation Month,
Yes.
could you give us a pitch for giving to the foundation?
Foundation chair, can you tell?
Yeah, exactly. There is no more incredible time to be able to ask for support of the Rotary Foundation, because it is the centennial. And it gives us that platform to say, we're celebrating 100 years of doing good in the world. Our charitable arm of the organization that allows us to do that, allows us to literally change the face of this planet. And if there was ever a better time to be able to support it, it's during this time. And so I would frame every request that I made around the fact that we are celebrating a centennial that started off as a very small dream with $26.50, and we now have over $1 billion in our endowment. That's changing the world. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.